Back to our lunchtime now and Politics Live.
It's Tuesday, it's 12:15 and this is Politics Live. The Home Secretary defends the government's approach to fixing the asylum system.
You start and you build something and you make things work step by step. That's how you get results in the end, not by making grand sweeping promises.
But will the public buy into this incremental approach? Also today,
the new leader of the Green Party of England and Wales.
Zach Polanski becomes the new leader of the Greens. What will it mean for our politics? This was President Trump's last state visit. The next one is almost upon us. So what's at stake? And national flags have started lining our streets. What do our leaders think about it? Joining me today, Labour MP Joe White, Conservative MP Kit Malthouse, Henry Hill, Deputy Editor of Conservative Home, and will shortly be joined by Liberal Democrat MP Wendy Chamberlain. Now, as you may have seen in your area, a large number of flags have started being put up on lampposts, on motorway gantries, some of them being painted on roundabouts. These are the St George flag, sometimes the Union Jack, and our leaders over the summer have continued to be asked about it. So let's have a listen to what they have to say.
And in our flat, which is upstairs from here, as you know, we've got the St George's flag in our flat.
So you're encouraging people to put up more flags?
I'm very encouraging of flags. I think they're patriotic and I think they're a great symbol of our nation. I don't think they should be devalued and belittled, and I think sometimes when they're used purely for divisive purposes, it actually devalues the flag. I don't want to see that. I'm proud of our flag.
We actually have Union Jack bunting on our garden shed at the moment. I've got St George's flags, I've got St George's bunting, I've got the Yorkshire Rose bunting as well. I've got Union Jack flags and tablecloths. We've got the lot.
That's a lot of flags. You heard there Keir Starmer, of course, yesterday talking to the BBC about it, and that was Yvette Cooper this morning on Breakfast. Joe, is your house festooned with flags in the same way as Yvette Cooper's?
No, but it has been. Certainly when England have been playing, my son's been very keen to get the England flag out. My grandson will be wearing his England hat on Sunday when he goes to see the cricket. You know, I'm very, very proud of our flag. I have the Union Jack on my office. So I'm, you know, and it's very much part of who I am and what I stand for. So I've been very content with seeing flags go up on our lampposts. I've just been to Bolivia for my holidays, where you see their flag everywhere. And I was interested to see one morning the flag was raised and everybody in the street stopped and put their hand on their heart. And I thought that really is patriotism for you. And that's how I feel when I see my flag being raised.
Kit, what about your house?
Yeah, I'm pro-flag. Been known to fly flags on various occasions. I'm also married to a Canadian, and if you go to Canada, you'll see the Canadian flag all over the place as you drive through their streets. So yeah, the more flags, the better, as far as I'm concerned. I'm with the Prime Minister. I have to say, though, I do think there's a little bit of performative patriotism here. I mean, what we're talking about here is a government and a party that's terrified of being seen as non-patriotic, given what's happened to them, the accusations that were levelled against them in the past. But I think we should just be relaxed about our flag. And
you think being painted on roundabouts, you're OK with that as well?
Well, now, you might be crossing the line into, well, let's put it this way. I don't mind the odd roundabout being painted with a flag, something that might ornament an area, but if everybody starts slapping paint around everywhere they feel like it, where's the line? I wouldn't like anybody to come and paint on the side of my house, let's put it that way, even though I would be flying a flag. But yeah. I might paint on the side of my house.
The Prime Minister said he would be worried if it was used in a divisive way, divisive purposes. What do you think would be a divisive way of using the flag? Do you think that's what's happening here?
Well, people want to show they're proud of their country. It's happened over the summer against the asylum hotels issues and the numbers of people coming here.
So if you're outside protesting with a flag, would you consider that divisive?
No, I wouldn't consider that divisive. But if it's used to define who we are, opposed to, and used as a way to make people who don't live in this country or come from this country feel different or undermined, and their identity being challenged. I think that might make people feel uncomfortable, but I don't see anything wrong with using the English flag or the British flag to define us as a country and who we are.
Henry, what have you made of it this summer? Are there any near you, and what have you made of the response from the politicians?
I haven't seen any near me. Sadly, even if I wanted to, couldn't fly one because I live on a high street and the council won't even let me have a window box in case it falls on someone. I actually think that I really like seeing flags about. Like France is the go-to example for this. When you're in France, you'll be in some random town, population 5,000. You find the town hall, and there's 3 tricolor under every window. Right? It's basically just a pageant. And you go to a lot of other countries, including, obviously, America is a special case. America, you'll get a military fly past for a local baseball game. But in Western Europe, you'll get countries, often with progressive governments, which do fly the flag everywhere. And it's strange because in this country, we seem to have internalised this idea that we don't really do that. But if you look historically, that's not the case. If you look 100 years ago, at the sort of turn of the 20th century, you couldn't move for like bunting and flags and flower arrangements and all the rest of it. And we've kind of internalised it in recent decades. And I do think that it's something that we should change as an attitude. Because if you want to build a civic nationalism to kind of counteract the blood and soil, racial, ethnic versions of it, France, I think, shows you what the model looks like. You need to have a thick sense of civic identity. You do need the pomp and the pageantry of it. And so if you don't do it, as we've seen, it just ends up in the hands of the far right. But I think that we would all benefit from using it a bit more often.
And the politicians' response, do you think any of it's performative?
Of course some of it is performative. They're politicians. And also, it's the media. They're asked a question. What are they going to do? If they said, I don't happen to own any England flags, but I do really like it, we'd pounce on them for that. It's an unwinnable question. I personally think most of them are probably genuinely fine with the flag. There may be some of them who maybe are more heavily stocked on flags than they would be if they were not in public office.
I think Henry's on to something there. I mean, flags obviously have meaning, and we have legislation on the books that can ban certain flags from being flown, right, in support of particular groups. But flags really only have a negative meaning if they're flown by particular groups and nobody else. And where national flags are concerned, if we all flew them, then they wouldn't have the connotations that some give to them. I personally don't. But is there any finer sight than the Mall festooned with our national flag from top to bottom? I mean, it's really quite a glorious thing to see.
I think we have agreement. Let's have a look at this BBC headline, which says that international students are being warned not to overstay their visas. Now, study visa overstayers make up 13% of the total asylum claims. Now, under these plans, 130,000 students and their families will be sent a text message. This is it. This is what they will receive. It says, if you submit an asylum claim that lacks merit, it will be swiftly and robustly refused. If you have no legal right to remain in the UK, you must leave. If you don't, we will remove you. Jo, do you think this is going to make a difference?
I think it's important. The messaging is such that if people are here because they're on here to study in universities, etc., it needs to be made clear to them this is not a gateway to claiming asylum. So it's a reminder exactly what the rules are, and they shouldn't be taking liberties of it. There's too many people who are using it as that route into asylum seeking, and I think that we need to be very tough and remind people, not just the students, but the country, exactly what the rules are.
I mean, this is quite a small step. It comes on the back of yesterday, where Yvette Cooper in the House of Commons announced that she was temporarily suspending new applications for refugees to bring their family members here. But I mean, this is a pretty small step, isn't it?
It's, in my view, we have to take every step. Some of it is incremental. I feel that the proposal that was made, or announcement that was made yesterday, comes on the back of that currently, when somebody's has claimed asylum, families are following very, very quickly. In the past, it was 2 to 3 years. It's actually creating or adding to the housing crisis that we've got, and it's making homelessness a very, very big issue for asylum families. What we're saying is that if you're given asylum, get a job, actually get some money under your belt, contribute to the economy and to our national insurance make your national insurance contributions, and then you'll be in a better position to bring your family across.
I'm delighted Wendy Chamberlain from the Liberal Democrats has now joined us. I think you've probably seen this about this message that's going to be sent to overseas students, who warning them not to overstay their visa. What do you make of it?
Well, I have to say, you know, you would think as a robust asylum system or immigration system that people were clear about what happened when they came to the UK. But what I would also say is, you know, I represent a constituency that has a major university in it, and it's usually reliant on foreign students and what they come and what they contribute, and they're an integral part of that structure. But I think what we need to be aware of is it is a very small thing that the government is doing. There were 16,000 people who came here on student visas in the last year who applied for asylum when they were there, which is a regular route and which they are entitled to do. But if we look at those who are coming by other means, it's a much, much bigger number. So yes, this is a sign that the government is looking at everything, but I think potentially it might be sending some of the wrong messages to people who are coming here to study and to contribute to the UK economy in that way.
Jo, do you agree with that? Sending the wrong message?
No, because people, by coming here and contributing to the economy whilst they're here, the whole point of them coming here and going back with the qualifications so they can go back and rebuild or add to the economy from where they come from. And that's the whole focus of them allowing them to come here. So, no, I don't think it's the wrong message at all.
Kit, the government's saying this is part of a wider reform, because it says that the system is in a mess and that it was left in a mess by your party.
Yeah, well, apparently the entire world is a disaster because of the previous government. I mean, nobody's really buying that anymore. I mean, look, I'm pro-foreign student. We earn more from foreign students than we do from the entire oil and gas industry in this country, and we managed to accelerate the numbers very significantly because it's such a big earner and it has such a soft power influence to the rest of us. I'm pro-enforcing the rules, but this is kind of Ministry of the Bleeding Obvious stuff. I mean, these are people who have come for largely university education. I think they can work out what a visa means and what a deadline might mean. And so it's kind of performative clickbait again as part of an overall package with a party which is frankly struggling with the promises that it made during the election in trying to persuade the British people that they were going to do something about small boats in particular and failing to do so. So they're now throwing out this kind of clickbaity stuff to put everybody off the
Jo, it's just clickbait.
No, it's not. Look at what we inherited. We had a backlog of over 80,000. We had a Rwanda promise that had already cost us 700 million. Only 4 people actually went there with their board and their education being paid for. That's the failure that this government had to inherit, and we've been having to sort out that mess ever since. The boats were coming at that time. We came in saying that we'd stop the boats. It's taken time. We've got to tackle those gangs. We're trying to get the borders bill through Parliament, and it's now your members in the House of Lords are actually blocking it. You voted against progress, and now you're trying to stop progress in the House of Lords.
I mean, look, nobody's pretending it isn't a very difficult issue, and I've been for a long time proponent. In fact, wrote an article in the Times, I think 3 or 4 years ago, saying that really the only solution to the small boats problem is to have a comprehensive exchange agreement with the French. Now,
so this is,
to be fair to the Labour government, they have started this little pilot, which might be the seeds of some kind of success, and we all have to hope for the sake of the country that, and those people that are crossing, that they do succeed. But we won't get there until 80% plus are immediately returned to France. And everything we do, all the rhetoric about smash the gangs and stop the boats and all that stuff, none of it will work unless we have a comprehensive returns agreement.
But the thing is, your party, I mean, Kemi Badenoch, Chris Philp, they don't like that one in, one out.
Well, I think
idea.
Because it's just a
It was
small
your
pilot.
idea.
Yeah, it's just a small pilot. If it was a comprehensive returns
Well, the government would say they're starting and it has to build up over time.
Well, you've got to remember, I mean, what the Labour Party have discovered is what we all said at the start, which is whatever the British government does of any stripe, the gangs and the smugglers will just adapt their model. They'll change their pricing in the face of increased risk. They'll look at different beaches, I mean, we've now seen bigger boats with more people coming from different areas. You know, they just adapt. So really, your only way to solve it, as I say, is to have 100% returns with the French, unless we can persuade them to do that. I mean, to a certain extent, we're doing a 1-for-1 swap. If we said to them, look, we'll do a 2 or a 3-for-1 swap, if we managed to make sure there were no crossings at all because 100% were being returned, we wouldn't have to do any swaps. So the number that we offer to swap becomes immaterial, and it's the only solution that I can see that might actually have a prospect of working.
Henry, Yvette Cooper is saying there that this is an incremental approach, that These things in themselves might not be hugely significant, but together they will make a difference. And obviously the government has come back, Parliament's come back, and they've spent the first 2 days talking about immigration. Do you think it's going to work for them?
I mean, the thing with an incremental approach, which is perfectly fine, by the way, doing something to see if it works, piloting schemes, these are all perfectly sensible, is that we don't know what the next steps are going to be, right? I mean, Yvette Cooper, I think the measures she's announced are quite sensible, especially the one about restricting family reunification, because family reunification is really the thing that makes asylum an exponential process, because you let one person in on their own merits. Suddenly they have a right to reunification with several more people, each of whom have a right to it, and so it goes on logarithmically. So in that sense, it could work. I think the danger for the government is that your first year is always the year in which you have the most momentum. It's the year your shadow team comes in and you hit the ground running. And Smash the Gangs was never an alternative to an asylum reform policy, simply for the same reason that Smash the Gangs hasn't worked for drugs. People smuggling is a lucrative international criminal business with a very low barrier to entry, because all you need are some lorries and some boats. And so unless you were going to do something truly brutal, you're never going to smash the gangs. There's always going to be that market. And so you do need to deal with pull factors. Now, again, we've seen Labour talking about ID cards. Now, Conservatives have different views on ID cards, but one of the pull factors that we see time and again that brings people here is that we don't police our grey economy very well. And things like we have a non-contributory welfare system, so you can get here and you can get, depending on your circumstances, straight to the front of the queue. Now, it would be really interesting to see if Labour follows all of these developments up with actual policy proposals first, and then whether it gets the credit. Because I think the danger is, if it moves too slowly, that it will end up doing a lot of these things, but Nigel Farage will get the credit, because it will look like the government's being dragged by its fingernails.
Wendy, first of all, on this, Henry, they're talking about the reunification, family reunification. What do the Liberal Democrats feel about that announcement?
I think we want to look at it very, very closely. I think there's absolutely no doubt that some of the changes that we've seen to the immigration system means that it's more difficult for people who are UK nationals to bring their families over, spouses over, because of changes to earnings rules, etc. But I think the other thing is...
Do you think it needs to be changed?
Well, we get into a conflation here between the small boats discussion, which is 4% of overall immigration figures, and the rest, and we start talking about that. But I think we can't lose sight of the fact that 50% of those who have come over on reunification visas last year are under 18s. So I think we have to look very carefully at what the government is proposing.
So you think they shouldn't
there's a risk there. Well, I think that's what obviously the government have made an announcement. They're looking at these incremental things, but I think what we're saying is actually, if the intention here is to stop the boats, potentially making such a decision actually just drives more people into irregular routes, and that isn't what any of us want to see.
And are you saying that, you said it's a very small number, those coming over on the boats, are you saying that you don't think it is a problem?
No, I wasn't. It's an overall small number in terms of immigration, because other people are coming via recognised routes. But one of the arguments has always been around small boats is actually, if there was proper, safe and legal routes for people to come, they wouldn't be choosing the boats as an option. So when you reduce some of those, then that makes things more difficult and actually potentially becomes a push factor.
I mean, we had a big problem with Albanians coming on small boats. You can get a Ryanair flight from Albania into the UK. It's not hard. There was a reason that they were coming through that illegal route. I mean, it's worth noting, right, that we've gone from smash the gangs to an incremental approach. I bet you in 12 months' time we go to it's all rather complicated and difficult. Right, because until we can get full cooperation from the French, I'm afraid the gangs will just work their way through the system.
I don't think anything's off the table. I also want us to look at every option, including processing asylum claims abroad. I very much believe in the proposal for ID cards. The French are saying that one of the push factors is that it's far too easy to work in the black market, but also one of the reasons that we want to have tighter controls of families coming here is because the gangs are saying, bring your families. They were able to come in a few weeks' time once you've got your asylum process agreed. So we've got to make it a lot tighter, and we've got to have much more control. And what I want to see is make it harder for people to come here and work illegally. I'm very pleased that we're actually putting more money into doing raids on businesses that are employing employing people inappropriately and actually making arrests, and people are facing up to £80,000 fines per person that they take on. So we're making it a lot tougher for the black market to operate. And for example, if you look at the delivery companies and the passing around of IDs, and the fact that we want delivery companies to take responsibility for who they employ.
One of the other things you've talked about is the European Convention on Human Rights, and there's been a lot of talk about whether this needs to be either suspended or reformed in some way. Now, the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, was on the Today programme talking to Nick Robinson about this morning.
You won't suspend, even in the short term. Will you reform membership of the European Convention?
So we don't need to suspend in order to be able to take action on the way in which the legislation is interpreted in our courts, and we can also clarify and change domestic legislation, which in itself explains the way in which different articles should be interpreted by the UK courts as well. So there are a lot of things we can do.
Jo, do you think that goes far enough? She's saying very clearly they don't need to suspend it or draw away from it.
No, I believe it needs reform. There are 9 other European countries who also believe it should be reformed, and one of the arguments that they're using, that they want to have tighter control of their borders, which is exactly how we want to use it.
Do you think it's likely? Do you think that's likely to happen?
I think in partnership with other European countries who are also signatories to the treaty, it will happen, because it underpins many of our human rights legislation, such as right to free speech, right to fair trial, and it also underpins some of the agreements, such as the one in, one out agreement that we're having with France.
So which bits of it don't you like, and which bits do you think, when you say reform, what do you mean by that?
Article 8, yes, so it's understanding right to a family life and how that's being interpreted by immigration judges, and some
people are using that to fight their deportation.
Exactly. So we want it tightening up, and we have control in this country how elements of articles are translated or understood, and we can do that. But I think it'd be much stronger if we bring it into the modern age by working with other countries who are signatories to the treaty.
So what Yvette Cooper is saying, which is to effectively tell our courts how they should be interpreting it. She thinks that is the way to go.
Yes.
You don't think
I think it's one way, but I think we can make it a lot tougher for European countries if we work together in modernising the whole treaty.
So you would like them to go further? They're not going far enough at the moment for you?
Yes, I'm keen that we go further. I don't think it needs to be stopped or frozen or overruled or taken out. I think it can be modernised for the modern era.
Do you think it can be modernised or needs to be changed?
It definitely needs to be reformed.
Are you against suspension?
No, I mean, look, you're better off trying to reform it first, not least because if you left the ECHR, the upheaval would be huge. There's a very good article, I think, on Saturday by Fraser Nelson in the Times outlining, the difficulties around it and whether it would make any difference at all. But, I mean, we had free speech in a jury trial before the ECHR. Right, we have a strong record of the development. In fact, probably one of the leading Western nations developing the notion of universal human rights. And we have...
Your party is reviewing, isn't it?
They are. So we're in the middle of a review at the moment. David Wolfson...
What would you like to see that
is having
come
a
out
look
with?
at it. I find myself a bit torn, to be honest with you. I mean, I'm not sure it's going to make a massive difference leaving the ECHR, and I worry slightly about it becoming a kind of a bit of a shibboleth about change.
Would you stand on a manifesto that says that you were leaving it?
I'd like to see a reform, though. I would like to see change. It's pretty obvious that the court has become much more adventurous than anybody expected it to be, and that it needs to be restricted in its purview. And I think, as you said, there's quite a lot of European nations that are starting to believe the same.
But you think suspending it or leaving it would be going too far?
I think you're better off trying to reform these things. I mean, we were one of the founding parties.
Are you feeding this back to Kemi Badenoch into the review?
Yes, I have done.
And how many of your colleagues do you think agree with you on this?
Good question. I have to say it's not on everybody's lips in the tea room. I think we're waiting to see what David Wolfson's got to say.
OK, Wendy, where do the Liberal Democrats stand on this?
I mean, I just don't think we want to be in the same company as countries like Belarus and Russia. I think it's very easy to talk in those very sort of black and white terms of in or out. But what's quite clear is what we are lacking is that sort of collective working together and responsibility. And I think when we look at the impact that Brexit has had in relation to the irregular routes that some people are using, there's no doubt that there were limited small boats or crossings before then. And the reason for that was was, and I heard the Somalian refugee or asylum seeker on PM last week, and he was saying the reason why he is now in England is because he's been rejected in other European countries. He knows he will not be successful in any other European country, so he's now coming to England. So that was previously a deterrent that doesn't exist anymore, and so I think it's important that we continue to work collaboratively with our European neighbours.
Where do you think debate's going on the ECHR? Do you think that the public just want something done more immediately than reform, which could take quite a long time?
I mean, yeah, the public always like results more than process. Sadly, as someone who loves process, there's only so interested they can get. In the short term, Yvette Cooper is completely correct. You don't need to do anything to the ECHR to leave it, because Britain has the constitutional system we have here is called a dualist system, which means that the ECHR only has effect if it is given effect by British law, which means that Parliament can simply legislate contrary to the convention. Indeed, it was Tony Blair who did this with prisoner votes. He simply ignored.
It happened in the last Parliament. It said on the face of the
So in the short term, that's absolutely true. In the long term, I'm sceptical about whether or not reform of the ECHR can work, because I think that the problem that we're describing, which is the courts got more adventurous, you know, when we signed up to it, capital punishment and corporal punishment were both convention legitimate, now they're not, is baked into the very model, because you've got courts that are legislating year after year after year. In our system, Parliament also legislates every year, and so the two things keep each other in check. But if you've got a system where courts are producing new judgments every year, but political reform happens once every 50, you're always going to have the court with lots of room to outgrow the political intentions of people at the time.
OK, we're going to move on because we have to bring everyone the news that the Greens have elected a new party leader. Zach Polansky has been announced in the last hour or so. He won with a landslide victory, 84% over his rivals, Ellie Chowns and Adrian Ramsey. Let's have a listen to what he had to say in his victory speech.
Whoever needs us to have their back, we will be there. We will be there to amplify their voices, to listen to the most marginalised and minority communities, to speak with them, not for them, and challenge truth to power, to take on power and wealth in this country. And we absolutely recognise that migrants are very much the backbone of this country. Our country has problematic history that we also need to come to terms with, but also we have a beautiful history, a beautiful present and a beautiful future of what we are when communities come together. So let's have a very clear Green Party message. Our communities will always stand together.
And our political correspondent, Georgia Roberts, has been watching all this for us. And Georgia, that was a thumping victory. What does it mean for the Green Party, do you think?
Yeah, there was lots of gasps in the room when that result came through. And Zach Polansky was the more anti-establishment candidate who wanted to focus on more disruptive, bolder messaging, especially amid those concerns that the Green Party aren't quite cutting through at the moment, despite record success at last year's general election returning for MPs. And despite this new environment that lots of members have been talking to me about here, of the party system, the traditional two-party system, breaking down, which should make way for disruptive forces like the Greens to really come through. So Zach Polansky wants to build on the success of a general election last year. It's ambitious as a target. He talked about gaining at least 30 new MPs for the Greens at the next election. We can expect to hear a lot from him, explicitly linking the Greens' traditional environmental agenda with more social justice issues. And when Zach Polansky was speaking after his victory, he talked about this being the Green Party's time. He criticised reform a lot. Reform have loomed large a lot over this campaign as the other disruptive force. Zach Polansky has even talked about learning a thing or two from Nigel Farage in terms of how he's able to cut through and get those messages across. But Zach Polansky said that they ultimately are a faux force. They're taking up political space, pretending to be working for the working class, when actually it's backed by millionaires, the Reform UK party, out to destroy democracy. Zach Polansky talked about lowering bills, nationalising water companies and holding Labour to account. And of course there are those concerns amongst some in the Labour Party of bleeding votes to the Green Party. So that's a relevant point to make. But also He was asked about the prospect of a new party to the left that we know is on the horizon, Jeremy Corbyn and Zara Sultana's still unnamed party, and what that could mean for the Green Party's chances. Some polls have suggested that that could cut their position in the polls by around 3%. I mean, lots of members here today were playing down the chances of Jeremy Corbyn's new party really hurting the Green Party that much. Sept Polanski was asked about this in a Q&A with journalists after his victory was announced. He said that it's too early to talk about any kind of coalition with that party, but he did acknowledge that the Greens do have some work to do to make sure that those voters side with them. And he also said that he acknowledges the challenge now is to turn the enthusiasm that was so blatant in the room here for Sept Polanski's victory. It was a landslide victory, into those votes, building on the success from the last election and being the new party of the left, replacing Labour, as Sept Polanski said he wants to do.
Okay, Georgia Roberts there. Thank you very much indeed. And you mentioned Jeremy Corbyn. He has taken to X to congratulate Sept Polanski. He said your campaign took on the rich and the powerful, stood up for the dignity of all marginalised communities and gave people hope. Real change is coming. I look forward to working with you to create a fairer, kinder world. Joe, do you think this is going to be a threat to the Labour Party, from the left?
We've got to get on with the job of governing and delivering for people, for example, in my constituency. My focus is on sorting out education systems, sorting out our hospitals and ensuring that people have good jobs and good skills and opportunities to go for.
You think that will fend off that threat?
I'm more interested in ensuring that people in my constituency have money in their pockets to spend on not just on day-to-day utility bills, but on doing the things they want to do in life and having more control over the choices they make. At the moment, they are struggling, and my focus is on making sure that we deliver for those constituents. For the number one priority for them is, can they get a doctor's appointment when they need one? Can they get a dentist appointment?
But do you feel that the threat to Labour is coming more from parties like Reform?
It depends on where you live.
But for you in your area, that's presumably where you think the threat's coming from.
Certainly, that's.
Is there a problem if the government tax that way, if you like, and sees them as the enemy, which is actually, you've heard the Prime Minister talking a lot about Nigel Farage and the threat that he poses. Does that then open up the possibility of the left coming for you?
If this country wants to stop the likes of Nigel Farage, then we have to work together to ensure that we have a country that democratically listens to and represents the interests of the people in my constituency. And that means delivery on ensuring that we get the jobs that people want, the skills that people need, and people start to get money in their pockets to make the choices they want to do in life.
Wendy, a progressive alliance, do you think that's a possibility here? Might include Jeremy Corbyn, Sept Polanski and the Liberal Democrats?
Congratulations to Zach. That was clearly... clearly,
lots of politicians would love a victory that big, right?
Yes, and dare I say it, I was reflecting on Liz Truss there as well, these former Liberal Democrats that go on to lead other parties.
He, of course, did used to belong to your party.
But, that was talking about that sort of breakthrough, and I think back to the local elections in England in May, where it was the Liberal Democrats who did incredibly well, as well as Reform. And so, I don't think we need to look at a progressive alliance. I think the Liberal Democrats are in a strong position, largest party in third party in Parliament in a century, and a pretty popular leader if you look at polling in comparison to others.
Do you think this is going to be significant for the political landscape? I mean, the Greens have also managed to take over some pretty safe Tory areas in the past.
Yeah, so I was going to say, I think that if anything, CCHQ will be hoping that they can breathe a bit of a sigh of relief here, because the Green Party's electorate is split quite heavily between an urban left-leaning electorate and then a rural, more centre-right electorate who view them as sort of the local nice people who aren't whoever's in charge at the moment. And you do, as a small party, have to choose between those two things. And by choosing the leader they have and the policy direction that he's going in, there's a chance that that might undermine Green efforts to win over those middle-class voters, which will be helpful if the Tories, as Kemi Badenoch is currently doing, are downplaying their net zero angle.
Yeah, and we did actually hear from Kemi Badenoch today on this very issue, talking about the Tories pledging to get all oil and gas out of the North Sea. And this is what she had to say.
It will help people with their energy bills by making sure that we increase supply. 100% of the gas that is taken from the North Sea is used in the UK. And what we're seeing right now with sky-high energy bills is a result of a net zero mandate that is simply not working. And we need both Labour and the SNP to change course.
So, Kit, what do you make of that? Where are you on this whole issue?
Oh, I think she's completely right. I mean, it's, you know, first of all, there's a lot more to oil than just burning it, right? Aspirin, paracetamol, tamoxifen, the chairs we're sitting on, the cars we came in, all of them are made from oil-derived products. And so there's a hell of a lot more to it than just combustion. Right? And shutting off the North Sea is a bit like going on a diet by locking the fridge and then ordering a takeaway every night. Right? I mean, we are going to be shipping this stuff in from overseas. The Norwegians are pumping the same stuff from under the same sea and making a fortune. It seems crazy to me to cut off our nose to spite our faces. There is something to be done about usage and about climate change, or whether we should be burning it. And I'm pro-electric car, I'm pro-nuclear, I'm pro-looking at alternative energy. And don't forget, we are the party that took coal out of our energy mix completely over 10 years. So there's lots to be done. But the idea that we should just not touch this stuff that's sitting in the larder, that is used in so much of our daily lives, medical devices, you know, school uniforms, the material our clothes are made from, it all comes from petrochemicals, and it's an organic product. We should be exploiting it as much as we possibly can.
So you're happy where your leader's going in that?
Agree, yeah. And just on the green guy, I'm with Henry on that. I mean, I agree that two becomes one, as the Spice Girls once sang, which is probably quite a good thing for their party, but
Because
he is
they
the
had the
Donald Trump of the
joint
Green
leaders.
movement, and I'm always happy when socialists throw off the camouflage.
OK, well, very interesting. Zach Polanski is going to be on the programme tomorrow, so I will put that to him and see what he says about it. Now, you might remember this from back in February.
It is my pleasure to bring from His Majesty the King a letter. He sends his best wishes and his regards, of course, but he also asked me to bear this letter and bring it to you. So can I present the letter from the King to
Thank you very much. Am I supposed to read it right now?
Yeah, please do.
I will do.
I've got to tell him what your reaction is, so I need to know. I need to know.
He is a great gentleman. A great, great gentleman.
Now, that visit is, of course, coming up later this month. There will be lots for those two leaders to discuss. Jo, are you excited about this visit?
It's well, I wouldn't say I'm excited. I see it as we are inviting the President of the United States of America to this country, and there's going to be a state banquet as part of that. He is, you know, the USA is one of our biggest trading partners, and we need to retain and build on that relationship. This is about our economy and strengthening our economy, and so we have to ensure that we're not just working with our close trading partners, but ensuring that Donald Trump is front and centre of that.
Kit, what do you make of how Keir Starmer has handled President Trump in terms of people talking about him being a tricky customer to deal with? Their unlikely friendship seems to have continued.
Yeah, well, you know, he obviously is a president that responds to sucking up, and Starmer has spent, so far as I can see, his entire interactions sucking up as much as he possibly can. I mean, I find myself torn about this thing. I mean, the provision of the invitation and then the Ed Davey thing is profoundly embarrassing for the monarch. Right, the whole thing is just an embarrassment for him, sadly. But at the same time, I find myself also torn because I do think the American position, particularly on Gaza and the Middle East, pretty monstrous, and indeed the recent attacks on the international.
Do you think Keir Starmer should speak up? Should he say more to
I absolutely do.
In public?
Both on trade and on international affairs, I think we should be much more assertive about our position.
He would say that he's doing it behind the scenes, and that's how diplomacy works.
Well, he isn't. I mean, on trade in particular. I mean, as I said before, I'm married.
Well, we don't know what's going on.
I'm married to Canadians, so maybe I'm biased, but I would have stood with the Canadians. I would have stood with the Europeans and said we stand shoulder to shoulder for free trade, and you should.
So if he's with the Donald Trump at a press conference during this visit, you think he should be openly saying that to him?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
Joe, do you think
whether he should go the full Hugh Grant in whatever it's called, Love Actually? I'm not quite sure.
Joe,
but
what
there's
do
a
you think?
diplomatic way of saying you differ.
Yes, and that's what we're talking about, diplomacy. And those discussions have to happen behind closed doors. We know that Trump can take decisions on the click of a finger just like that. And it's about ensuring we maintain that trade relationship because, we have different industries are totally dependent or reliant on how they trade with the huge nation that USA
But you see,
is.
it's much more complicated than that. So if we get a special snivelling deal with the Americans on tariffs, but nobody else does, everybody else, all our other customers are going to struggle to buy our products too, right? There's a theory behind free trade, right? And if one large economy, like a dominant economy like the Americans, stops playing or stops subscribing to that theory, then we all suffer, right? And I'm pro-free trade. And to me, we should have stood for free trade, not just for us, but for everybody else.
Wendy, your party has a different approach. Ed Davey, your leader, has decided, as we can see in this BBC headline, has decided to boycott the state dinner, as Kit was alluding to. Why has he decided to do that?
Because this is about bringing the one person who can really affect change from Gaza, bringing it to his attention.
Surely he could have, could he not have talked to him?
We're talking about it now, Kit, aren't we? And yes, it mightn't be that he doesn't care about it, but it means that we're talking about it. And certainly in my constituency over the summer, it came up, it's the biggest issue that I get casework on. People are appalled by what they are seeing on their television. We argued that, the government should offer a state visit because we recognised that it was an opportunity for leverage in relation to Trump, because it is quite clear that is exactly the kind of patronage that he enjoys. But Ed has thought about this very carefully. He's thought about his attendance. He's thought about it in relation to the monarch. But he knows how much people care about this and how I think it's the helplessness that people feel that no matter what we are seeing on the television, no matter what we're seeing in Parliament, things don't change. And Trump is the one person that potentially has the leverage with Netanyahu and others to effect that change.
And Kate, interesting you said the situation in Gaza and what President Trump is or isn't doing about that is monstrous. Don't you agree that this is a way of actually making those feelings known?
Well, I'm not sure whether flouncing out of the dinner is going to do that.
Flouncing,
to be honest with you, I think it might have been sensible for him to put his bib and tucker on, sidle up to Donald Trump and make his views known to him face to face at the dinner. There's an opportunity for him to do it. Why wouldn't he go and tell him? I mean, he's never going to get in the same room as Donald Trump in any other circumstance.
But we're also talking about the fact that the diplomacy that's working behind the scenes doesn't seem to be working.
No.
So this is a very visible diplomacy that Ed Davey is saying to Keir Starmer.
Go to the dinner and tell him what you think.
We need to be doing that.
Totally
He's made a very clear
position.
position.
To support the visit and then boycott it?
Well, I think it's about, when we said we were supporting the visit, that was at the time that it was initially potentially on the cards and going to happen. I think when we look at what has happened in Israel and Gaza since then, the situation is deteriorating. We're seeing further what is happening there is just so horrifying and nothing seems to be changing that I think it's perfectly acceptable to support a state visit, but then once it comes around to say, well, actually, we're not going to participate in part of it.
But President Trump won't even notice. He won't even be told that Ed Davey's not there.
Yeah, but Keir Starmer notices and people are listening to us talking about it now.
But it doesn't make that much difference to what
and that's exactly how
what Trump is
my
thinking.
Constituents feel in relation to the situation in Gaza. They feel that whatever they do doesn't make a difference. Here's an opportunity, hopefully, for that difference to be felt.
Henry, do you think it makes a difference?
Well, no, not really.
Boycotting
To what? To what? To British foreign policy? No. It's not going to affect Labour's governing policy. Does it make constituents feel that a leader is listening to them, which is not unimportant? Possibly. Is it going to change American policy? Absolutely not. And you do have to feel a little bit for Starmer because, on the one hand, his policy is diverging very sharply from Trump on Gaza and the Middle East. On the other hand, he's trying to act as this bridge between an increasingly NATO-sceptical American administration and Europe and Ukraine. And so he has to try and thread that needle very carefully, because if you did square up to Trump and trash his tariffs regime and all the rest of it, he might respond by just pulling the rug from out from under Kyiv.
And just finally, Wendy, Ed Davey did talk actually quite openly to say that he and his wife prayed about this decision. I mean, do you think it's risky for politicians to talk about their faith in that way?
Well, I think we talk about freedom of expression and freedom of speech. Ed is a Christian. that's what he chose to do. And I think it also demonstrates the respect he feels for the importance of the state visit and, you know, turning down the state banquet when, you know, obviously the monarch is there in attendance.
Do you think that prayer should guide political decisions in that way?
I think
something you do.
Well, I'm a Christian. I occasionally attend church myself. It's not something that I tend to do on a regular basis, but I don't think we should judge people in relation to it.
That's all for today. Thank you to all my guests. I'll be back tomorrow at 11:15 with all the action from Prime Minister's Questions.